The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace gardens as Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood at her bedroom window. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the letter that had arrived just hours before. The royal seal was broken, the contents already burned into her memory. She had read it 3 times, hoping the words would change, but they remained the same. William found her there 20 minutes later, still in her nightgown, staring out at the roses they had planted together last spring. He could see her reflection in the glass, tears streaming down her face. Without a word, he wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned into his familiar warmth. "How long do we have?" he whispered into her hair. 6 months, she replied, her voice barely audible. Maybe less. The diagnosis had come as a shock to everyone. Catherine had always been the picture of health, running marathons, playing tennis with the children, keeping up with royal duties that would exhaust most people half her age. But the persistent headaches she had been dismissing for months had finally forced her to see the royal physician. Dr. Harrison had been kind, but direct. The brain tumor was aggressive, inoperable due to its location. Traditional treatments might buy them time, but the prognosis was clear. The woman who had captured the world's heart, who had breathed new life into the monarchy, who had given William the family he had always dreamed of, was dying. They had kept the news private for 3 weeks now, telling only the Queen and their closest family. The children knew something was wrong, but not the full truth. How do you tell a 10-year-old that their mother might not see Christmas? How do you explain to a 5-year-old why Mummy cries when she thinks no one is looking? William had been struggling with his own emotions. The boy who had lost his mother at 12 was now facing the possibility of watching his wife, his best friend, his anchor, slip away. The panic attacks had started again, something he thought he had conquered years ago. But Catherine, even in her darkest moments, was still taking care of him, still being the strength he needed. "We should tell the children today," Catherine said, turning in his arms. Her face was pale, but her eyes held that familiar determination that had made him fall in love with her all those years ago at university. William nodded, though everything in him wanted to protect them from this truth a little longer. "How do we do this?" "Together," she said simply. "We tell them together, and we make sure they know how much we love them. We make sure they understand that some things are beyond our control, but our love for them never changes." They dressed in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. William chose a simple navy sweater, one Catherine had given him for Christmas. She picked a soft blue dress, one the children always said made her look like a princess from their storybooks. They needed to look normal, stable, even as their world was crumbling around them. George was in the garden, practicing his cricket strokes against the old oak tree. Charlotte was reading under the gazebo, her auburn hair catching the morning light. Louis was building something elaborate with his blocks on the terrace, completely absorbed in his creation. For a moment, William and Catherine just watched them, memorizing this perfect, ordinary moment before everything changed. "Children," Catherine called softly, "could you come inside for a moment? Daddy and I need to talk to you about something important." The next hour was the hardest of their lives. Catherine had practiced what she would say, but when George's face crumpled and Charlotte began to cry, all her prepared words seemed inadequate. Louis, too young to fully understand, kept asking if Mummy was going to heaven like great-granny Diana. "We don't know exactly what's going to happen," Catherine told them honestly. "But what I do know is that every single day I have with you is precious. Every hug, every laugh, every bedtime story is a gift. And even if I can't be with you always, my love for you will never, ever go away." William had to excuse himself twice, overwhelmed by the weight of watching his children process this devastating news. When he returned, he found Charlotte curled up in Catherine's lap, asking if they could still have their mother-daughter shopping trips planned for the summer. "Of course we can," Catherine promised, kissing the top of her daughter's head. We're going to make the most beautiful memories together. The days that followed were a careful balance of maintaining normalcy while preparing for the inevitable. Catherine threw herself into creating memory books with the children, recording bedtime stories on video, writing letters for their future birthdays and weddings and first days of school. She wanted to leave them pieces of herself, breadcrumbs of love they could follow when the path ahead seemed dark. William watched her with a mixture of admiration and heartbreak. Even facing her own mortality, she was thinking of others. She organized charity events for cancer research, quietly updated her will to ensure her personal jewelry would go to Charlotte, and spent hours with William discussing how to help the children through their grief when the time came. "I need you to promise me something," she said one evening as they sat in their private sitting room. The fire crackled in the grate and rain pattered against the windows. It was the kind of cozy evening they had always loved, just the two of them with their books and tea. "Anything," William replied without hesitation. "When I'm gone, I need you to live. Really live. Not just exist for the children or the crown or duty. I need you to find joy again, to laugh with them, to maybe even love someone else someday." William started to protest, but she held up her hand. "I know it seems impossible now," she continued, "but I can't bear the thought of you spending the rest of your life in mourning. The children need a father who shows them that life goes on, that love doesn't end with loss, it transforms. How can you ask me to think about loving someone else when I'm losing you?" William's voice broke. "Because I love you enough to want you to be happy, even if it's without me. Because our children deserve to see their father whole again someday. Because you taught me that love multiplies, it doesn't divide." They cried together then, holding each other as the weight of the future pressed down on them. Outside, London continued its ancient rhythm, unaware that the couple who had given them so much hope was facing their darkest hour. The next morning brought a different kind of challenge. Catherine had asked to visit the hospital where she would begin treatment, not as a patient this time, but as herself. She wanted to meet the other families facing similar battles, to use whatever time she had left to bring comfort to others walking this difficult path. The pediatric cancer ward was particularly close to her heart. She spent the morning playing with children who were fighting battles far too advanced for their young years, reading stories and simply being present in their struggle. William watched from the doorway as a 6-year-old girl with no hair left from chemotherapy braided Catherine's long brown locks, both of them giggling like schoolgirls. "She makes it look easy," Dr. Patterson commented, joining William in the hallway. "But I can see the pain in her eyes. How is she really doing?" "She's terrified," William admitted. "But she's also the bravest person I've ever known. She's more worried about everyone else than herself." "And you?" William was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be strong enough for her and the children. I don't know how to lead a country when I can barely hold myself together." "You don't have to have all the answers," Dr. Patterson said gently. "You just have to show up. Love her through this. Let her love you back, and trust that somehow you'll find the strength you need when you need it." That evening, they told the Queen. Elizabeth had suspected something was seriously wrong when Catherine had missed several family engagements, but the reality still hit her hard. The woman who had weathered countless storms with stoic grace broke down completely, clutching Catherine's hands and promising that the children would always have a family, always have a home, always know their mother's love through the stories she would tell them. "You've been the daughter I never had," the Queen whispered through her tears. "You've brought such light to our family, such joy to William. I cannot bear to lose you." Catherine had planned to be strong for the Queen too, but the older woman's raw emotion broke through her careful composure. They held each other and cried, two women from different generations united in their love for the same family, the same future that was now so uncertain. As news of Catherine's illness began to leak to trusted palace staff, the weight of keeping this secret became overwhelming. Every smile for the cameras felt like a lie. Every public appearance was shadowed by the knowledge that it might be among her last. The world still saw their perfect fairy tale princess, unaware that she was fighting the greatest battle of her life. William found himself watching her constantly, memorizing the way she laughed at Louis's silly jokes, the patience she showed when Charlotte wanted to practice piano for the 100th time, the gentle way she helped George with his homework, even when the pain medication made it hard for her to concentrate. "Take a picture," she said one afternoon, catching him staring as she gardened with the children. "I'm trying to remember everything," he admitted. "Then don't just watch," she smiled, holding out her hand. "Help us plant these roses. Make the memory with us." So he knelt beside them in the dirt, his suit forgotten, his hands covered in soil, planting flowers that would bloom long after she was gone. Charlotte insisted they plant pink ones because they were Mummy's favorite, and Louis wanted yellow ones like the sun, and George carefully chose white ones that would look elegant against the garden wall. "These will be beautiful next spring," Catherine said, not adding what they all knew, that she might not be there to see them bloom. That night, after the children were asleep, Catherine found William on the balcony of their bedroom, staring out at the lights of London. She wrapped a blanket around both of them and settled into his arms. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Our wedding day," he replied. "Standing in that cathedral, promising to love you in sickness and in health. I meant those words, but I never imagined this. Are you sorry that we found each other knowing it would end like this?" William turned to look at her, seeing the vulnerability behind her brave facade. "How could you even ask me that? You've given me the most beautiful life. You've given me children who light up the world, a love that has made me a better man, memories that will sustain me forever. I would choose you again and again, even knowing how this story ends." Catherine smiled through her tears. "I needed to hear that. Sometimes I wonder if it would be easier for all of you if you had never loved me at all." "Don't you ever think that," William said fiercely. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, to our children, to this family. Whatever time we have left, we're going to fill it with so much love that it lasts them a lifetime." They talked until dawn, making plans and sharing dreams, holding on to each other as tightly as they could. Neither of them knew that in just a few months, the whole world would be watching as they said their final goodbye, that their love story would become a beacon of hope for others facing impossible losses. For now, they had this moment, this quiet dawn breaking over their beloved home, this chance to love each other completely before the hardest chapter of their story began. The autumn leaves swirled around the palace grounds as Catherine made her way to the children's playroom. The treatment had been harder than anyone expected. The once vibrant woman who could keep up with 3 energetic children, now tired after climbing a single flight of stairs. Her beautiful hair, which had been her pride since university days, was beginning to thin from the chemotherapy. She found William reading to Louis, their youngest curled up in his father's lap as they worked through a picture book about brave knights and magical kingdoms. The sight made her heart ache with love and sorrow in equal measure. These quiet family moments had become even more precious now that she knew how numbered they were. "Room for one more?" she asked softly. Louis's face lit up as he scrambled to make space for her on the sofa. "Mummy, Daddy is reading about the knight who saves everyone." Catherine settled between them, feeling the warmth of her family around her. William continued reading, but she could see the way his eyes kept moving to her face, checking for signs of pain or exhaustion. She had become skilled at hiding both, but he knew her too well to be fooled completely. George appeared in the doorway, his school uniform slightly rumpled from the day's activities. At 11, he was beginning to understand more than his younger siblings about what was happening to their mother. Catherine could see the worry in his young eyes, the way he had started staying closer to home, less interested in the activities that used to excite him. "How was school today, sweetheart?" Catherine asked, reaching out to smooth down his unruly hair. "Fine," he said, but she caught the hesitation. "Mrs. Williams asked about you. She wanted to know if you were feeling better." Catherine and William exchanged glances. They had been careful about what information to share with the school, but word was beginning to spread despite their efforts. The palace press office had managed to keep the story from the media so far, but they all knew it was only a matter of time. "What did you tell her?" William asked gently. "I said you were getting the best doctors and that you were very brave," George replied, climbing onto the sofa to join their growing pile. "That's true, isn't it?" "Yes, my darling," Catherine said, wrapping her arm around him. "That's absolutely true?" Charlotte bounded in from her music lesson, her cheeks flushed with excitement. At 9, she still maintained much of her natural enthusiasm, though Catherine noticed she had become more clingy lately, following her around the house whenever possible. "Mummy, guess what? I learned that song you love, the one you always hum when you're cooking." "Would you play it for us?" Catherine asked, genuinely excited to hear her daughter's progress. They all moved to the music room, where Charlotte proudly performed the piece she had been practicing. The melody filled the room, sweet and haunting, and Catherine found herself memorizing every note. She wanted to remember this moment forever, her daughter's concentrated face as she played, William's proud smile, the boys clapping enthusiastically when she finished. "That was beautiful, sweetheart," Catherine said, pulling Charlotte into a hug. "I'm so proud of how hard you've been working." "Will you still be able to hear me play at the Christmas concert?" Charlotte asked innocently. The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Christmas was still 2 months away, but Catherine's doctors had been honest about the timeline. She might have weeks, not months. "I'll do everything I can to be there," Catherine promised, meaning every word, even though she wasn't sure she could keep it. That evening, after the children were settled in their beds with extra stories and longer hugs than usual, Catherine found herself in the library with William's grandmother. The Queen had insisted on spending more time at the palace lately, and Catherine suspected she was trying to create as many memories as possible while she still could. "I've been thinking about the children's future," the Queen said without preamble. Elizabeth had always been direct, but age and grief had made her even more so. "About what they'll need afterward. I think about it constantly," Catherine admitted. "I lie awake at night worrying about Charlotte growing up without a mother's guidance, about Louis forgetting me as he gets older, about George feeling responsible for taking care of everyone. They'll have William, of course. And Charles will be a devoted grandfather, but they'll need something more, something uniquely yours to carry with them." Catherine had been working on exactly that. In her stronger moments, she had been writing letters for every important milestone she would miss. First days of school, graduations, weddings, the births of their own children. She was creating a library of love that could guide them through whatever came next. "I'm also worried about the press," Catherine confessed. "When the news breaks, the attention will be overwhelming. The children have never experienced anything like what's coming." The Queen nodded grimly. "We'll protect them as much as we can. But you're right to be concerned. The world loved Diana, but they worship you. When they learn what's happening—" Neither woman needed to finish the thought. The global outpouring of grief would be intense, and 3 young children would be at the center of it all. William joined them an hour later, looking exhausted. The weight of carrying this secret while maintaining his public duties was taking its toll. He had dark circles under his eyes, and Catherine noticed he had lost weight over the past few weeks. "Any word from the doctors about the new treatment protocol?" the Queen asked. William shook his head. They want to try one more round of targeted therapy, but they're not optimistic. At this point, we're looking at palliative care, making her as comfortable as possible for whatever time is left. How long? Elizabeth asked quietly. Weeks, not months, William replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Catherine reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers the way they had done thousands of times over their years together. We've talked about this. We knew this day would come. Knowing and living it are two different things, William said roughly. I don't know how to let you go. You don't have to let me go, Catherine said firmly. You just have to love me through this last part of our journey together, and then you have to love our children enough to help them heal and grow and become the amazing people I know they can be. Over the following days, Catherine pushed herself to maintain as much normalcy as possible. She helped with homework, attended Charlotte's ballet recital, and even managed a small family picnic in the gardens when the autumn sun made a rare appearance. But everyone could see she was failing, her strength ebbing like water from a cracked vessel. Dr. Harrison began making daily visits, no longer pretending these were routine checkups. The children learned to recognize his car in the drive, and Catherine could see the fear in their eyes each time he arrived. She made a point of sitting with them afterward, answering their questions as honestly as she could while still protecting their innocence. Is Dr. Harrison going to make you better? Louis asked one afternoon, crawling into her lap as she rested on the sofa. He's going to help me feel more comfortable, Catherine explained carefully. Sometimes doctors can't fix everything that's wrong with our bodies, but they can still help us feel better. Like when I hurt my knee and you couldn't make it stop bleeding, but you made it feel better with a kiss and a plaster? Exactly like that, Catherine smiled, amazed by her youngest child's ability to understand complex emotions through simple comparisons. George, always more serious, had different concerns. Will we still live here when you're gone? He asked during one of their private conversations. This is your home, Catherine assured him. Daddy will take care of you, and Grandpa Charles and Gon. You'll always have a family, and you'll always have a place where you belong. But it won't be the same without you. No, sweetheart, it won't be the same. It will be different, and sometimes different feels scary and sad. But different doesn't mean bad. You'll find new ways to be happy, new traditions, new memories that will be just as special. Charlotte struggled with the practical implications of losing her mother. Who will help me with my hair for school? She asked one morning as Catherine braided her long auburn locks. Daddy is learning, Catherine smiled, thinking of the YouTube videos William had been watching in secret. And Gon knows all about royal hairstyles. Plus, I'm going to teach Maria a few of your favorites. Maria, their longtime nanny, had been a rock throughout this ordeal. She had been with the family since George was born, and her steady presence was a comfort to everyone. Catherine knew that in the difficult days ahead, Maria would be crucial in helping the children maintain their routines. As October turned to November, Catherine made the difficult decision to reduce her public engagements to almost nothing. The palace announced that she was dealing with a health issue that required treatment and rest, but the full truth remained hidden. Catherine used this time to focus entirely on her family, creating as many final memories as possible. She and William took the children to their favorite spots around the estate, capturing hundreds of photos and videos that would become treasured keepsakes. They visited the treehouse William's father had built decades earlier, picnicked by the lake where they often fed the ducks, and spent long afternoons in the garden where Catherine taught the children to recognize different birds. Remember how Mummy taught you that the robins come back every spring? She would say, planting seeds of memory alongside the flower bulbs they buried in the cold ground. The most difficult conversation came when Catherine realized they could no longer delay telling the children the complete truth. Her condition had deteriorated rapidly, and it was becoming impossible to hide how ill she had become. They gathered in the family sitting room on a gray November afternoon. Catherine had asked the staff to give them complete privacy, and the house felt unusually quiet without the usual background activity. "We need to talk about something very important," William began, his voice steady despite the tears Catherine could see him fighting back. "Is Mummy going to die?" George asked suddenly, the question hanging in the air like a physical blow. Catherine felt her breath catch, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Yes, my darling, I am going to die, probably soon. The doctors have done everything they can, but sometimes the medicine doesn't work the way we want it to." Charlotte burst into tears immediately, throwing herself into Catherine's arms. Louis looked confused, not quite understanding the permanence of what they were discussing. George sat very still, his face pale but his eyes dry, processing this confirmation of what he had suspected for weeks. "When?" Charlotte sobbed against her mother's shoulder. "We don't know exactly," Catherine said honestly. "Maybe a few weeks, maybe a month. But what I want you to know is that every single day until then, I'm going to love you with everything I have." "It's not fair," George said quietly, his composure finally cracking. "Other kids get to have their moms forever." "You're right," Catherine agreed. "It's not fair at all. I wish I could stay with you until you're grown up and have children of your own. I wish I could see you graduate and get married and become the incredible adults I know you'll be." "Then why can't you?" Louis asked, still struggling to understand. "Because sometimes our bodies get sick in ways that can't be fixed," Catherine explained. "It's nobody's fault, and there's nothing any of us could have done differently. Sometimes sad things just happen, even to people who love each other very much." They spent the next hour talking through their fears and questions. William explained how their daily routines would continue, how they would still have family holidays and birthday parties and Christmas celebrations. Catherine assured them that love doesn't disappear when someone dies, that she would always be part of them, even if they couldn't see her. "I want you to remember," Catherine said as they sat together in a pile on the sofa, "that every time you're kind to someone, or brave when something scares you, or loving to your family, you're carrying part of me with you. The best parts of who I am live inside each of you." That evening, after the children were finally settled in their beds with extra cuddles and reassurances, Catherine and William sat together in their bedroom. The future stretched ahead of them, dark and uncertain, but somehow the burden felt lighter now that everything was out in the open. "How do we get through this?" William asked, holding her close. "One day at a time," Catherine replied. "We love each other, we love our children, and we make every moment count." Outside their window, the first snow of winter began to fall, covering the gardens in pristine white. Catherine watched the flakes dance in the lamplight and thought about spring, about the flowers they had planted that would bloom without her, about the children who would grow and thrive and carry her love forward into whatever came next. December arrived with an unusual warmth, as if winter itself was being gentle with the Wales family. Catherine had grown significantly weaker over the past weeks, but she was determined to give her children one last magical Christmas. The palace staff, who had become like extended family over the years, worked quietly to help make her wishes come true. The great Christmas tree stood in the main hall, decorated with ornaments the children had made over the years mixed with priceless royal heirlooms. Catherine insisted on helping despite William's protests, sitting in a wheelchair to direct the placement of each special decoration while sharing the stories behind them. "The angel on top was mine when I was Charlotte's age," she told the children as William carefully positioned it at the highest point. "My mother gave it to me and her mother gave it to her. Someday, Charlotte, you'll put it on your own Christmas tree." Charlotte beamed with pride and responsibility, not fully understanding that this tradition was being passed down earlier than anyone had planned. The children had thrown themselves into preparing surprises for their mother, working with William and the staff to create gifts that would show how much they loved her. George had written a story about a brave princess who saved her kingdom through kindness. Charlotte had composed a song on the piano with lyrics about families and love that lasted forever. Louis had painted dozens of pictures, each one showing their family together and happy. "I want to give Mummy something that will make her smile every day," Louis had confided to William. "Something that shows her we'll always be together." The palace medical team had set up a comfortable space in Catherine's favorite sitting room, complete with oxygen equipment and pain management tools that could be hidden away when the children visited. Dr. Harrison came twice daily now, but Catherine had made him promise to keep the medical intrusion as minimal as possible during their final weeks together. William barely left her side, working from a desk set up in their bedroom and conducting only the most essential royal business. His staff had been understanding, quietly rearranging his schedule and handling matters that could wait until afterward. He had grown thin from stress and sleepless nights, but his devotion to Catherine never wavered. "You need to rest," Catherine told him one morning as she found him reading state papers at dawn. "The children need you to be strong." "I'll rest when—" he started, then stopped himself. "When I'm gone?" Catherine finished gently. "William, I need to know that you're going to take care of yourself. Promise me you'll eat properly and sleep enough and ask for help when you need it." He set aside his papers and came to sit beside her on the bed. Even diminished by illness, she was still the most beautiful thing in his world. "I promise I'll try. But right now, all I want is to spend every possible moment with you." The Queen visited daily, often bringing tea and sitting quietly while Catherine rested. Sometimes they talked about the children's futures. Sometimes about royal duties that would need to be managed, but often they simply enjoyed each other's company in comfortable silence. Elizabeth had grown to love Catherine as the daughter she never had, and the impending loss was almost unbearable. "The people will be devastated when they learn the truth," the Queen said during one of these visits. "You've given them so much hope, so much to believe in." "Then let them remember that," Catherine replied. "Let them remember that love wins, that families matter, that ordinary moments are actually extraordinary gifts." As Christmas Eve approached, Catherine made a request that surprised everyone. She wanted to attend the traditional Christmas service at St. George's Chapel, her last public appearance as Princess of Wales. "Are you certain you're strong enough?" Dr. Harrison asked, concerned about the physical demands of even a short public engagement. "I may not be strong enough," Catherine admitted, "but I need to be there. I need to say goodbye properly, not just to my family, but to everyone who has supported us." The palace carefully planned the appearance, arranging for wheelchair access and medical support, but keeping the preparation secret. The press and public still didn't know the full extent of Catherine's illness, though speculation about her health had been growing. On Christmas Eve morning, Catherine asked Maria to help her dress in her favorite blue coat. The one William had always said brought out the color of her eyes. She wore her sapphire engagement ring and the diamond earrings that had belonged to Diana, carrying pieces of their family history with her. The children were excited to attend the service together, unaware that this would be their mother's final public goodbye. They looked beautiful in their formal clothes, George serious and handsome in his young man's suit, Charlotte elegant in a navy dress that matched her mother's coat, Louis adorable in his miniature formal wear. As their car pulled up to the chapel, Catherine could see the crowds that had gathered. Hundreds of people lined the path, many holding flowers and signs of support. They didn't know how sick she was, but they had come to show their love for the family that had captured their hearts. Catherine took William's arm as they walked slowly toward the chapel entrance. She had to stop twice to catch her breath, but she smiled and waved to the people who called out warm Christmas wishes. A little girl held up a handmade card that read, "We love you, Princess Catherine," and Catherine made sure to acknowledge her with a special wave. Inside the chapel, surrounded by family and friends, Catherine felt a peace she hadn't experienced in months. The familiar carols filled the ancient space, voices joining together in celebration of hope and renewal. She held William's hand throughout the service, feeling the strength of their love even as her body grew weaker. During the final hymn, Silent Night, Catherine's voice joined the others, though it was barely a whisper. Charlotte leaned against her mother's side, and Catherine kissed the top of her daughter's head, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair one more time in this sacred space. As they prepared to leave, Catherine asked for a moment alone in the chapel. William hesitated, but she assured him she would be fine. She wanted to say a private prayer to express her gratitude for the life she had been given and to ask for strength for her family in the difficult days ahead. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty chapel, "for William, for our children, for every day we've had together. Please watch over them when I can't." The journey back to the palace exhausted Catherine completely, but she insisted on joining the family Christmas Eve dinner. Cook had prepared all her favorite dishes, and the dining room was lit only by candles, creating a warm, intimate atmosphere. The children were full of excitement about Christmas morning, chattering about their hopes for presents and planning their Christmas Day activities. Catherine listened to their happy voices and felt a bittersweet joy. This was exactly how Christmas should sound, full of love and anticipation and the simple pleasures of being together. "I have something for each of you," Catherine announced as they finished dinner. She had been saving her final gifts, wanting to give them on this last Christmas Eve together. For George, she presented a leather-bound journal. "This is for writing down your thoughts and dreams," she explained. "Whenever you have something important to think about, or when you miss me and want to tell me something, you can write it here, and someday when you're older, you'll have all these memories and thoughts to look back on." Charlotte received a small wooden music box that played the lullaby Catherine had sung to her every night since she was a baby. "This will play our special song whenever you want to hear it," Catherine said. "And whenever you hear it, you'll know that I'm thinking of you." Louis got a soft, stuffed lion that Catherine had secretly embroidered with both their initials. "This is brave Lion Louis," she told him. "He's going to keep you safe and remind you that you're the most courageous little boy in the whole world." William received a letter, sealed with her personal wax seal. "Read this when you're ready," she said simply. "When you need to remember how much I believe in you." They moved to the sitting room, where the Christmas tree glowed with warm lights. Catherine settled into her favorite chair, surrounded by her family, and watched as William read "The Night Before Christmas" in his deep, comforting voice. The children sprawled on the floor around the tree, occasionally interrupting to point out their favorite ornaments or to speculate about what Santa might bring. "This is perfect," Catherine murmured to William when he finished the story. "What is?" he asked. "This moment, all of us together, the tree, the children's laughter, your voice reading to us. This is what I want to remember forever." Christmas morning dawned clear and bright. Catherine had made it through the night, though William could see how much effort each breath cost her now. She insisted on being present when the children opened their gifts, propped up in the sitting room chair with blankets and pillows to keep her comfortable. The children's delight in their presence was infectious, their excitement filling the room with joy despite the underlying sadness that had settled over the adults. Catherine had worked with William to choose each gift carefully, wanting to give them things that would spark imagination and creativity in the years to come. "Open yours, Mummy," Charlotte insisted, presenting Catherine with the small wrapped package that had been sitting under the tree. Inside was a photo album that the children had created with William's help. Every page showed moments from their family life, candid shots of picnics and holidays, formal portraits from special occasions, silly selfies taken during quiet afternoons at home. On the last page, all three children had written messages in their careful handwriting. We love you forever and always. You are the best mummy in the world. Thank you for teaching us to be kind and brave and happy. We promise to take care of Daddy and each other." Catherine couldn't stop the tears that came as she looked through the album. Every photo was a treasure, a reminder of the beautiful life they had built together. "This is the most wonderful gift anyone has ever given me," she told them, her voice thick with emotion. Later that afternoon, as the children played with their new toys and the house settled into the peaceful rhythm of Christmas Day, Catherine asked William to help her outside to the garden. The December air was crisp but not cold, and she wanted to see the roses they had planted together one more time. They sat on the bench overlooking the rose garden, wrapped in warm coats and holding hands like the university sweethearts they had once been. The bushes were dormant now, preparing for winter's sleep, but Catherine could envision them blooming again in spring. "They'll be beautiful next year," she said softly. "I'll take care of them," William promised. "The children and I will tend them together." "I want to be buried here," Catherine said suddenly. "Not in some grand royal tomb, but here in this garden where we've been so happy. I want to become part of this place that has meant so much to us." William nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. The thought of laying her to rest in this peaceful spot where they had shared so many quiet moments seemed right somehow. "The children will visit me here," Catherine continued. "They'll tell me about their school days and their friends and their dreams. And when they're older, they'll bring their own children to meet me." As evening approached, Catherine grew visibly weaker. Dr. Harrison arrived to check on her, and William could see from his expression that they were entering the final phase of her illness. They helped her back inside, settling her into the hospital bed that had been set up in their bedroom. The children came to say goodnight, each taking a turn to hug and kiss their mother. She held each embrace a little longer than usual, memorizing the weight of their small bodies against hers, the sound of their voices as they chattered about their day. "Sweet dreams, my darlings," she whispered as William tucked them into their beds. "Remember that Mummy loves you more than all the stars in the sky." That night, Catherine slipped into a peaceful sleep from which she wouldn't wake. William held her hand through the quiet hours, telling her stories about their future grandchildren, assuring her that their love would continue to grow and spread through the family they had created together. She passed away just as the sun was rising on December 26th, surrounded by love and peace, her final breath as gentle as a sigh. William sat with her for a long time afterward, simply holding her hand and saying goodbye to the woman who had been his everything. When the children woke later that morning, William was waiting to tell them that their mother had died peacefully in her sleep. There were tears and questions and long embraces. But there was also a sense that she had given them everything she could, that her love would sustain them through whatever came next. The world mourned with them when the news was announced. Flowers piled up outside the palace gates. People shared memories of Catherine's kindness and grace, and leaders from around the globe offered their condolences. But for William and the children, the most important thing was simpler. They had been loved completely by an extraordinary woman, and that love would live on in their hearts forever. Catherine's funeral was a celebration of her life, attended by thousands who had been touched by her grace and compassion. She was laid to rest in the palace rose garden as she had wished, where her family could visit her among the flowers she had loved so much. And every spring, when the roses bloomed again, they remembered her words about love that grows and multiplies, never diminishing but transforming into something even more beautiful than before,